Hello, howdy, and welcome back to my kitchen. I'm Kathryn, the Aerogarden Homesteader. Today is freezer clean out. I have a lot of chicken that's been sitting in my freezer. It's been sitting there for a long time. I do have a video where I showed you how to break down a whole chicken. I will put a little bit of footage showing me breaking down some chicken thighs because I feel like the two major ways I buy chicken on the bone is either whole like this, as thighs on the bone, or sometimes I'll buy split breasts which come with the bone as well. So I'll show you how I break down the thighs so that you can get a better idea of how that happens. But for the most part, I'm going to be breaking down some of these for raw chicken so I can use them in meals across the week. I will be cooking up the rest of them so that I can use them shredded for a couple of meals this week. And then the rest of it will all get shredded and canned into jars so that I can use them over the summer. Today we're going to be making stock, and we are going to start with bone-in, skin-on chicken thighs that I got on sale. This is actually the best way to do it. It's pretty easy to do boneless, skinless chicken thighs on your own. See, the skin is just peeling off without me hardly doing anything. And you're getting it cheaper than you would if you bought, well, either chicken bones on their own, which are probably really expensive if you can find them, or if you were buying like boneless, skinless chicken breast or thighs. Those are pretty expensive. So if you can get with a bone in, then do it yourself. It's a lot cheaper and you're getting two products. So what I'm starting with is a boning knife, or whatever this is, a fillet knife. I have in the past used a chef knife before. Use something that's sharp and you're comfortable with, okay? The other nice trick is try to keep one hand clean at all times, and that should generally be your knife hand. So, as I was just mentioning, the skin does come off pretty easily on its own, and I am by no means an expert in this, so I am going to fumble around. I am going to have some problems. I will fight with the chicken breast or the chicken skin here, and it's all part of the process. So I'm trying to get this big knob of fat off. We don't really need that much fat, and it sort of wraps around to the underside. There we go. So I have a bowl for the parts I will process later. So I probably won't process the skin in with the stock or the broth or whatever I decide to make with these bones. I will pick the skin out after, but I do want to have it contained and not sitting on the counter. The counters, even though I've washed it before I started, it is one of those composite counters that's got lots of scratches in it, and scratches harbor bacteria. So I want to just try to keep things as clean as possible. And this is a cutting board that is safe to put in the dishwasher, so if I really want to just sanitize the crap out of it after I'm done, I can do that. You do what you have in your kitchen. So as you can see, I am just cutting down where the bone is. So here is the joint, and I'm just cutting down until I can see the bone all the way. So here's the other end of the joint, and the bone just runs down through the middle here. So I'm just sort of working my way down the side of the bone, manipulating the meat how I need to keep it out of the way so I can keep getting under the bone. And some of the bone has little cartilage bits on it. I do want to make sure either while I'm doing this or after the fact that I have gotten all those bits out, because, I really don't want to have that in my meat when I'm trying to eat it later. So I'll just keep working my way around. I don't know how well you can see this, but I'm just working my way around the joint here and trying to get under. I'm going to get under on this side as well, and flip things around as needed to just keep working it up. Try to keep your fingers out of the way as much as possible. We don't want to have cut fingers mixed in with cut chicken. And I will just keep working down the bone. And if you find your thing is sliding around a lot, your cutting board, go ahead and put like a wet rag under it. That'll help keep it from moving it around. I just sometimes take advantage of it moving around on me, and it helps just move my chicken into a better location for me. But if you find that annoying, just go ahead and anchor it down with something. So right here, there's a little bit of a grizzly knuckle on the bone. So I'm just kind of cutting down through the meat to make sure I'm not getting that. And there's a little bit of like silver skin here, tendon. So I'm also trying to cut that off as well. We really don't want that. That's kind of hard to eat. This is the golden part. This is the part we're going to use for our broth. See, there's little bits of bone on it, and that's fine. It'll help add more flavor to it. I also tried to make sure I got out all of those little grizzly knobs. And now I'm just going to go through and I'm going to double check to make sure there's no, like here, see if you can see this, there's a big gob of fat here. So I'm just going to use the knife, again trying to maintain a clean hand. I'm just going to kind of scrape it away from the chicken, and I'll just cut down there and cut it straight off. See, now we have a boneless, skinless chicken thigh that I only paid 99 cents for and took me probably, what, 5 minutes to debone. Yes, that's 5 minutes of my time. I could have paid someone else to do it, but I am going to get a stock, and it will be a shelf-stable stock. So we will go all the way through the process on that. Now I have a whole pile of chicken thighs to do. I will do one more so you can see the process, and then at that point I will just zip through the rest of them. So again, I'm going to take the skin off. This one has a little bit stuck here, so I'll probably leave that for the end. I'm just going to, again, trying to keep a clean hand. If you got to use 2 hands, just go ahead and use 2 hands. It's not a problem. It just sometimes means you have to be careful when you're turning your water on that you don't just get chicken stuff all over your faucet there. So there we go. I got all that off. Got another gob of fat here on this side that I can just mostly pull off. So here we go. There's the top of the bone. There's the bottom of the bone, or whichever. A little bit of fat line down here in the center, so I'm just following that down. Pull it out of the way a little bit. Keep going. If I got to fold the meat back, I can do that. That does help because it puts a little more tension on it. It makes it a little easier to cut. Obviously having a nice sharp knife helps, especially the tip of it. See how I'm just mostly getting in there with the tip and I'm just kind of following it along. Now that I've gotten most of the way underneath, I'm flipping it over and just kind of working up the other side and trying to meet in the middle. You gotta change your angle up a little bit sometimes, but you just work your way around, take your time, get it done. I know some people, they just zip through this and make it look like magic, but it's really not too difficult. It's just more mess than anything. If you can, if you're having a little trouble, you can just sort of poke the knife through and work your way along to get it out. That's just another way of doing it. Now the problem with doing that sometimes is you can leave little, see there's a little grizzly bit here. So we will just go ahead and get the knife under that and take it out. That will go in for the stock as well. And then I will just check the rest of it, make sure I didn't leave any on the other side. Mostly it's only on one side that it ends up with that little knuckle. But, you know, you might as well check both sides just in case, because one of these days it'll happen. Okay, so these are just thighs. There was no back attached. I will try to put up a video one of these days on showing a complete chicken breakdown. So whole bird all the way up to pieces and then debone it. And that's a little bit different because you'll have the back on one side. And that is that. We will move on to the next step.
I don't know if you'll be able to see this, but one of the reasons to get to the chicken is I noticed some frost on some of them. You can see that these bags have a lot of air in them. So I saw some frost. Frost will eventually start turning to frostbite, and I can just see the beginnings of frostbite on the tip of the wing here. I guess it's not really the wing tip, but this part of the wing. And so I don't want the chicken going bad in the freezer. It is time to move this into a different format of storage so that it won't go bad. Some of these chickens are from May of last year, so this one actually says 05. I've got some from August, there's a few from July. So it is just time to make sure that these are not going to go bad. And it's best to start rotating stuff that's been in the freezer for a while. Nothing lasts forever in the freezer, so this is one of my ways of ensuring I don't lose anything that I have stored. In they go. So it looks like I can fit about 3 in this turkey roaster. I would have done some of these in my electric roaster, but it is, as I've mentioned previously, the enamel is kind of coming off and it leaves like a metallic taste, which is unpleasant. So I don't know if you can see the frostbite occurring. So I am getting to these in the nick of time, I believe. So I will just have to roast them up, probably 3 at a time. I have 8. I'm probably going to break down 3 of them, but I'm not going to break down the legs. I'm mostly breaking down thighs and breasts. So I will probably throw the drumsticks in with the other 2, and that will hopefully cook it all up in 2 batches, because this is probably going to take a good solid hour, if not more. They are still frozen, so I'm actually expecting this to take 2 hours. This is what's left of the chicken, the bones of the chickens that I broke down. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put these on a sheet tray, and I'm going to put them in the oven so they can roast up a little bit. I personally find that roasted bones make for a nice stock, but you know what, sometimes you need to have a light stock, and in that case you would use unroasted bones. You would just put the bones in and make stock with it. I like to roast my bones. I like that darker, richer flavor it gives to the stock. So apparently my chicken came with a lot of extra liquid, but I'm just putting it in the oven just like this. So you can see there's a little bit of meat here. I might try to pull that meat off later just so that I can use it for canning purposes. But otherwise it's just like the little bits and pieces that, you know, don't get eaten. And I can see that it's got a little bit of freezer burn from being in the freezer for too long. So that will roast up, and I will be adding that to the stock when I get to making the stock. It did take a little while to get the chicken cooked, since it was cooking from frozen, but now that it's starting to cool off, enough that I can handle it, I'm just going to come in with clean hands and pull all this meat off. Most of this meat I'm going to put for canning. I will be saving some of this aside for freezer meals and some food probably on Friday dinner. So we'll see. I am keeping the bones. The bones are going to go into stock, so I will show you how that works, but pretty much I'm just going to go through and just pull all this meat off and let it cool before... It'll probably go in the fridge overnight, and then I will can it up in the morning once I get some stock made. I ended up deboning 2 of the chickens for raw meat for later this week, for today and later this week, and that left me with 6 chickens to cook in the oven. And it wasn't, I didn't debone 2 entire chickens, I left the drumsticks, so those ended up getting tossed in the oven with the other 3 that I roasted after this batch. So once that one comes out, I will have to pull all the meat off the bones from that so I can get it ready for canning. I like to go through and use my hands. I know not everyone likes to do that. Not only is this still quite hot, burning my fingers a little, but I can tell when I'm hitting like grizzly bits or little fatty bits, or I just find I can feel it better if I don't have something on my hands, but you know, do what you need to. This is still pretty hot right here in the center. There goes that. For canning purposes, I want to have pretty large chunks. That way it's not going to fall apart in the jar. But for the meal at the end of the week, I can just use some of these smaller shredded pieces. Doesn't really matter. I don't have to worry about leaving little bits of meat on the bone, because I will be turning this into stock, and that will just give it extra flavor. It is good to go over and make sure I do have all of the big chunks off, but I'm not too concerned about the little tiny pieces. It smells so good. I wish you could smell this. But it's a nice, rich, brown stock. Big day today. So, it is another day. Welcome to the next day. These are some of the bones that I peeled the meat off yesterday, and I did throw in some vegetables which ended up on top and kind of charred a little bit, but that's okay. But this is the stock. So I decided to not keep filming last night because it was getting really late and the light's just no good. It's dark. And I knew that today I would be able to show you all the different stages
of the stock. So this is stock that's almost done. I'll decant this off, I'll add a little bit more water, and I'll get a little bit more out of these bones. This is the drippings from yesterday from cooking all of these chickens. So it's got a layer of fat on top. It's actually pretty solid, so I will scrape the fat off and I can combine the drippings with the stock to give it extra flavor. And then these are the bones from the video that I did the chicken pot pie in, so I can link that if you want to see. And also there are thigh bones in here, which are from the thighs that I deboned. I showed you how I deboned them earlier, but those are from a couple months ago as well. So everything's just been sitting in the freezer. This cookie sheet is horribly overloaded. I might have to actually divide this into 2 cookie sheets, but really it just needs to go in the oven and brown up a little bit. So that's all that's required of this. And then I had some bones that didn't fit in the turkey roaster. This is the drawback to a oven turkey roaster instead of an electric turkey roaster. Not everything fit. So what's going to happen is, in this pot, I will put the browned bones. So once these are browned, they will go in here with water to cover, and some, if I got vegetable peelings or whatever, I'll throw those in. If I don't have them, generally I just throw in an onion cubed up, quartered, carrot. I just break it in half. I don't even peel it or anything. I wash it, but nothing else. And then if I have like the bottom of a celery, a stalk of celery, not the stalk, but the bottom of the bunch of celery, I'll put that in as well. So it's kind of stuff that I wouldn't really eat. I mean, I will eat the carrot, but sometimes I'll pick that out afterwards and just cut that up and put it into soup. But these are all the different stages of where you can start with the different stocks. So, and there is a difference between stock broth and bone broth, but they're pretty subtle, and it just kind of depends on what you're using it for, honestly. And then, of course, drippings. So I might actually save the schmaltz this time and try using it with vegetables, because I've heard it's really good with vegetables, so I might give it a try. But I have another busy day ahead of me, and this is not even getting to canning the chicken, so I don't know if that's going to end up just having to be in another video. I don't even know if you guys care to watch that, but I mean, I've canned chicken before. This is just cooked chicken, so I'll just have to put in some juice with it, that's all. Okay, I am going to get these in the oven roasting up. This needs to cool. It literally came out of the oven, so it's piping hot. It needs to cool off before I can decant it. So I gotta go track down another pot, which I don't know where I have another big pot, but I'll have to track one down. So I'll get these going, and I will come back later and show you where everything is at. The chicken bones are out of the oven right now. I'm transferring them to a pot. I'm going to make sure that I'm using tongs to not burn myself, but I also want to make sure that as I'm doing this, I'm also getting all the juice and the crusty bits and stuff off the bottom of the pan, because that's where all the flavor is going to be. In my pot, I currently have a bunch of food scraps that I've been saving up for stocks, and I've got the bones from earlier that hadn't been able to make it in the first batch. So this is what we're starting with, and then I'm going to get everything in. This is approximately a 15-quart stuff pot, so I'd probably get a little bit more water in there, but not much. I could put in there. So let that cook down. It will have to go like all day, and depending on how it's doing, I might let it go overnight as well on a low heat after sort of pulling off the extra stock. So it's kind of a see how it goes. So this is the fat. I've just been keeping this pot outside since it's cold enough without being too cold. I'm just going to try to not get any of the brothy bits off, which I'm failing at. Probably a way to clean this up so it doesn't have the bits of broth on it. These are the drippings from when I cooked the chicken. So I will be mixing this in with the broth to add to the flavor. There you go. That's all it is. We don't really need to take every little scrap off. So that's what it is. And we got a little bit of the broth in there, so there must be a way to clean it up, but until I've actually tried it, I don't know that I will. This video is probably getting really long. I might try to find a way to break things up a bit better, so we'll see. So this is a 35 quart stock pot, or actually it's a steamer pot. I've had the broth in it overnight. I don't know if you can tell, but the fat on top is really liquidy, even though it's had time to congeal in the cold. So I'm probably not going to keep this stuff as schmaltz because I don't know, it's a very different quality compared to the drippings, which were a lot firmer. It's still soft, but it was firmer. So I'm going to carefully scrape this off, and then I'm going to add the last little bit of stock to it from the last boil, and then I'm going to try to reduce this down a little before canning it. So that is what my day is going to be for this fun stuff. Day 3. Now, normally this wouldn't take 3 days to do. If you think about it, you'd have chicken dinner one night, put the bones on for stock, and then you could do everything the next day. This is just taking a long time because I had a lot of chicken to go through. So I am doing a cold pack. This chicken is cold from the fridge. I took out some of the broth, which is hot, but I'm hoping it'll cool down while I'm filling these jars. And I'm going to get some of this chicken going. Now I'm just kind of tearing this up into somewhat smaller chunks. I mean, this is probably fine. This I don't think is fine. It's going to be a little too big for heat penetration. And I want to make sure that, I'm not canning something that's unsafe. And I just dropped a piece on the floor. Now, under normal circumstances, I probably would have just canned this, like, willy-nilly, whatever color meat in whatever jar, but I decided I'm going to actually put all the white meat in one jar and everything else in the other jars, because that way I've got a little more flexibility. I've got someone in my house who only likes chicken breasts, so this way if I make a meal for everybody, then I have that flexibility. So it really is just a matter of shoving the pieces in the jars and then filling it up with juice. Now, maybe I should try this, but they do say that if you put in a little bit of broth first and then start filling it, it does help fill in some of the air pockets. So you don't have to worry about going through and dealing with air pockets with the pokey stick. So maybe I should give that a try on some of these other ones. Okay. I want this tightly packed, but not like jam-packed. I do want to have some spaces for the, obviously the juice to fill in and the heat to circulate. I don't know how these smaller pieces are going to do, but I guess we'll find out. I don't know if I really have another piece for this spot. Weird membrane on the chicken tenders. Alright. So, I think I got a nice big air pocket in the bottom. Isn't that lovely? I don't know if I can fill that in. Alright, well, let's try this again. It's like a jigsaw puzzle. This is, what is it? Tetris for adults. Alright, well, that is slightly better. Okay, So trying to keep this at the 1 inch mark. This is cooked chicken. It is not going to change volume. Raw chicken can change volume. So I do believe that they have updated the guidelines and raw chicken now requires 1.25 inches of headspace. This is cooked chicken. So I only need to do 1 inch because I am pressure canning. I am going to be speeding through this because this video is already getting pretty long, and I have shown how to do canning before. I can post a video for that if you want to go back and watch that one. But you just want to pack it in, make sure you have no air spaces, air pockets, and that you got a clean rim. So I am doing this with stock because it will give me a more flavorful end product. Boy, that was hard to say. More flavorful end product. I definitely don't want to overfill it. Use the little pokey stick. So these are new jars, but it doesn't mean there could be a chip missing. So it's good to check the rims while you're cleaning them. Cold meat, cold jar, cold water. I know that the broth I put in was a little warm, but it will cool off. My canner is off right now. I'm just going to fill these jars and then turn my canner on. I'm going to fill 2 more. Let's start with a little bit of juice and see if that helps. Probably going to have to get more juice too. This is going to make it a little more difficult if the air pockets don't get filled up right away. You have to load a little more carefully. So my particular canner will hold 8 of these 1.5 pint jars. And I feel like, you know, we used to do ours in pints, but I felt like it wasn't quite enough meat for one good meal and a little bit of leftovers. So we've increased it to 1.5 pints because a quart was just too much. And in case you're wondering why the broth is so hot right now, is I'm currently reducing it because I don't want to can. It was in a 35 quart stock pot or steamer pot. So, you know, I don't want to can 32 quarts, and I don't really think I need 32 quarts of chicken broth on my pantry shelf. So I decided to reduce it down. I guess I could dry it so I'd have it in powder form as well. It would certainly take up a lot less space. It would also be slightly more convenient, but I'm okay with broth. So this is a bit of an experiment for us. We have been doing raw packs mostly, and I wasn't quite a fan of the texture, so I was hoping that doing a cooked one would yield a better texture. So it's kind of an experiment for us. We've been doing this for a little bit, and we have yet to try one, but might stick with it. Because really, in the grand scheme of things, it can't be worse than the texture we've already been getting out of doing raw packs. So, which is it's a slightly unpleasant texture, and it's really hard to describe. It's like it's stringy. So the way we normally figure out amounts is that a pint holds roughly a pound of meat. So you can assume that these hold close to 1.5 pounds. Not quite. Okay, there we go. So I believe it is 1.5 hours for quarts. And I cannot split the difference. So round up to the next big size. So I will be doing this for 1.5 hours, and then I guess I will be filling more jars. I can probably use the same processing time for the stock. So I'll put all this in however many jars it takes of more of these 1.5 pints, and then the rest of it will all be stock in. I'll probably do it in pint jars. Might do some quarts just so I have some quarts, but I will probably, I guess I could do quarts this run, but it doesn't matter. I think that having some pint jars of stock on my shelf would be fun to have. Useful. Okay, I will, you know, I'm not going to show you this next part because, you know, it's just me loading more jars, honestly. I will come back and I will show you everything at the end of how it all looks, how it turned out, how many sealed. I'm hoping they all seal. But I will let you know at the end, and we will find out together. Here are all the jars, and I don't even know how to get the scope and scale of this. This was 3 canning sessions.
So I ended up with 5 quarts, here we go, 5 quarts of stock, 10 pint and a halves of the chicken, the pulled chicken, and 9 pints of stock as well. So I did find out that these Golden Harvest jars, if you have a 7-quart canner, a canner that'll hold 7 quarts, apparently it'll only hold 9 of these. I thought I was able to get 10 pint jars in my canner, and yeah, I couldn't get the 10th one to fit. So, and from my understanding is these are slightly bigger. They're actually not pint jars, they're half-liter jars, which is slightly bigger than a pint. So, now I know. Anyways, I hope you found this video useful. I hope that you are able to also put up your own chicken and stock. And if not, you know what? This stuff also freezes. You can freeze stock. You just keep it in the fridge for a couple of days if you're doing small batches. So, join along. If you found this useful, make sure you like and share so other people can also find it. It helps me out. Are you subscribed? That helps me out too. It helps you out too, because then you'll know when I post my new videos. And I will see you next time on the Aerogarden Homestead.